Are here for the Crochet Garments with Confidence Summit 2024, and this is our first live Q&A session. Hurrah! We have the amazing Sarah from Ned and Mimi. I assume you're in this position on all the screens.
Yeah.
Joining us today because her presentation has just aired, and we know that there were lots and lots and lots of people watching it and chatting about it as it was going on. So myself, Hannah from Hannah and Crochet, and Veronika from Blue Star Crochet, we are your hosts, and we are so happy to have you with us, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I was thrilled that you asked me to be part of the summit. So yeah, thank you so much.
And for your awesome presentation. So as people come in, if anybody has any questions for Sarah or for any of us, let us know. But yeah, so Sarah, you did Gauge last year, didn't you?
Yes, I talked about Gauge last year.
Yeah, and you're such a technician that we were like, we have to ask you for another technical thing because you explained things.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm doing a lot of the kind of not so exciting topics, but important.
I was going to say not so exciting, but absolutely fundamental, really important to get right, because it's not just about choosing the pretty yarn and deciding which pattern to make, is it? It's about the nuts and bolts of how to actually construct things. So yeah, seaming, my gosh, do you love it or do you hate it, everyone? What are your thoughts?
I do go for crocheting things together if I can get away with it. So if I'm kind of lining up like, stitch top of the stitches to top of the stitches, I do opt for crochet every time. But it does get a bit trickier when you're kind of lining up the sides of the stitches. But honestly, after watching that video, I think everyone will have perfect seams because that was really, really good.
I think so. Colleen's here and she said, love your presentation. We agree, Colleen, we agree. And Cindy's here too. And Grace says she hates it. And I'm assuming you mean seaming. Yes. Oh, gosh. It is something that really people dread, don't they? And I think for me, I must admit as well, I do slip stitch seam as much as I possibly can. But that doesn't always work, does it? I'm doing some lacy stuff at the moment and it's just not working. Yeah. It's just adding too much bulk to it. And I think it's really important to know when to use that and when not to use that, and when to invest the time and the effort into actually sewing those seams, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we've had questions from Kim. What stitch do you recommend for seaming flat garment?
Hang on, there's so many popping in that I can't.
Have you lost it?
Here we go. I found it. Sorry, Kim. Right, Sarah, what do you recommend?
Okay. So for a flat seam, I think it was probably the last one I showed in the video, the laced mattress stitch. That is really flat. I know people have different names for these things, but for me, the mattress stitch is kind of over and back in between the top of the stitches, and then the laced one is like over and under. So they're a little bit different, but that laced mattress stitch will give a really, really flat seam. You just have to be really careful to not pull too tightly on the yarn because it'll just pucker up really badly. So I think that is a good one. Do you have anything else that you like to do for a flat seam?
No, I would agree. And I think it's really important what you say about not pulling too tight, because also the important thing that you said about blocking as well before you're seaming, because if you then pull too tight and you haven't already blocked, there's no chance then, is there, after you've done those seams, to then block it to the measurements that you need it to be and to get a really nice finish. So yeah.
It is a pretty solid stitch once you kind of set it in by pulling it closed. It's set in stone, so really careful with that one. But yeah, I think the mattress stitch, as we all know, the mattress stitch, I think there was a little comment in the comment section that there might be a bit of a difference in the name between the UK and US, the mattress stitch. So
what a surprise that we use different names for things.
Absolutely, yeah. So I just caught that comment. I think it was Michelle from Tales of Knots, because she does tech editing as well, and I think that she pointed out a bit of a difference between the two. So we'll do a bit of a research on this. I wasn't aware that there is a difference. I was hoping that for once mattress stitch is like the universal.
No. Yeah, we have Nessa here too saying I dislike seaming. Gosh, it seems to be lots and lots of people that don't enjoy it. But Grace did enjoy your presentation. It was great. But yes, not seeming. Maribel saying it's a love-hate relationship. I love that the project is almost done, but then more ends to hide. Yeah, I wonder if that's part of it as well, of like you're just so nearly there. You've got all of your component parts, you've got all of your pieces, but yet you still have this what feels like a massive task.
Do you know what I sometimes do when I end the panels? I sometimes try and leave like a really long tail end, so I don't at least leave that one. You know, you don't have to sew in that end. You can use it to sew the panels together and then sew it in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A really cool. So once you've finished any panel, I suppose, just leave a really long tail, and then you can figure out which one you use for it. Yeah.
So if you've got like the two halves of the front panel, you kind of leave a long one there and a long one there. So when you're then attaching it to the back panel, you've got kind of end or tail ends on both sides to either crochet together with or sew it together, whatever method you're using. So that's my little tip to save at least one or two ends.
Definitely. And then Colleen saying, I love seams because of the structure, absolutely, but it's hard to do correctly. You did a great job on camera. Yeah, it is one of those things, isn't it, that people, so I equate it at the moment to my son Elliot is doing Beavers, so the scouting group, and he comes home with all these badges. I won't say what I really think of these badges, and I have to sew them on as neatly as I possibly can, and they're not, and I just can't get them as neat as I would like to get them. And I think that's how lots of people feel about seaming. It's just that the delicacy that you need to make it, especially in things like lace stitches, especially in garments, because you want them to be comfortable, don't you? You want to be able to wear them. So
well, talking about sewing badges on Beavers uniforms, it took me just as long to actually research where the badge is supposed to go, just as long as it took me to actually sew it. It's very precise. I was like, where do I sew this on?
I got one wrong, and I sewed it all the way around as opposed to leaving a slot so you could put something in it or something. I got in terrible trouble for that. Oh dear.
Hannah.
We have a question. Hi, lovely presentation. Do you have a favorite way to join yarn using knots? Very good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. So I have one way that I do it most of the time, and I think it's called a Russian knot or something, where you knot one end, then knot the other end, and then pull them and cut off the ends. And I don't always get it right, and I have to do it 2 or 3 times depending on the yarn. If it's like an acrylic or wool yarn, I usually have no problem. Cotton, really hard to knot.
I find it kind of slides off sometimes because the yarn is so smooth. It kind of like it grips for a little bit, but the more you pull on it, the more it's kind of giving away, isn't it? And in it, I just pull it apart. So if the yarn is too smooth or too silky, what I do is I just tie a normal knot and leave tail ends, and then I have to sew the tail ends in just to be on the safe side, because with the garments, if you invest such a long time into it, I think that the secure knots are the best. So I do go through the trouble of leaving the 2 longer ends and then sewing them in. Yeah.
Lovely. Sorry, I'm just messing about with our faces. At the beginning, we didn't say, if you haven't signed up, if anyone's joining us on this live and thinking, what on earth are they talking about? This is what we're talking about. If you haven't registered and you would like to join us for this whole weekend, then we have another 14 presentations to go. So scan that QR code, and I'll put the link in the comments as well somewhere once I can find it. Oh my goodness, Veronika, these two screens.
Are you struggling, Hannah?
I'm struggling. So Sarah, last year I realized that I could do with another screen so I could have all my links and bits and pieces. And now I've got it. I don't know what to do with it. I feel like I'm being fancy, but I'm not.
Right,
there we go. I put the link. Oh, I put the wrong link in the comments. Sorry. Bear with me, everyone. Talk amongst yourselves. Here we go. I'll try again. And then we have more questions to come to. I think we have lots here.
Yeah.
Where are we at? Which one is showing? Oop. Can you see how far back we are? Oh. Here we are. Oh, Amanda has said, I am a crochet newbie, so I've avoided seaming so far, but I think I can try it now. That's amazing news. And that it is confidence, isn't it? It's well, for me, it's definitely confidence to have a go. Like, it's all very well reading something, but actually seeing someone do it in person, it's like, oh yes, I can definitely do that.
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
a bit of a hand holding, isn't it? Just to see it in action.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And I think seaming is one of those things that it's more of an art than a science.
Yes.
And it's not like crochet stitches where they're pretty much, you can follow the instructions and it's more or less going to look like what you want it to with a little bit of practice. But with seaming, especially the sides of garments or the sides of any pieces, like you just have to kind of do your best and put your needle in the best position that you think, and there's no 100% right way to do it. So I know that can be a little bit intimidating, you know, when there's no actual right 100% right way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I get really uncomfortable as well with the, like, you know, you have this many crochet stitches, you have them done in this way and it's very uniform, but then sometimes you just have to fudge it a bit, don't you? With seams. And, like, you know, I say that with love to seams, but sometimes you absolutely do, because sometimes it doesn't always work. But do you know what? We survive and it's fine, and no one's going to know. Just do the best you can, I think, is the thing, isn't it? Just do the best you can.
Yeah, and the beauty of handmade things are the little imperfections as well. You know, if you want something that's made by a machine, you can go buy it. You know, so it's nice to have these little.
There is an element of that, isn't there? Definitely.
Yeah, I think somebody was asking about seaming underarms, and like you just said, it's tricky. I would clip everything together so that it's lined up as best as you possibly can. So I don't know where I got that idea from. I think I was like watching, I don't know, some kind of a quilting video or something to do with sewing, and they had all these little clips, and I just thought, that is the best idea ever. So I bought the sewing clips, and now whenever I have to seam anything big, clip everything together, and it's just so much easier.
And it kind of breaks it up as well, don't you? Because, like, when you seam, it's like, oh, I'm at the next clip. And then you get the next one and the next one, and before you know it, you're at the end of the seaming.
Yeah, and so mentally it's too.
Is this the question that you were thinking of from Maureen? Say, I think seaming sleeves onto armholes is particularly tricky.
Yeah,
it is.
I've lost it now.
It is. It takes time, doesn't it? It takes time and it takes practice, and it's the same thing. You'll just get better and better at it. Whereas crochet stitches are muscle memory, aren't they? And you just repeat, and it gets in and it sinks in. Seaming requires, for me, a bit more brain work. Each time.
And I think it even goes down to the fact that every time you seam something, you kind of have different types of fabric as well. Like, you don't always sew stitch to stitch, and sometimes you got, like you said, Hannah, lacy fabric, or you've got more solid fabric. So that's what I think, that's what people get scared by as well, that every time they go to sew something, it's like, if you make a granny square every time, it's the same process, isn't it? It's just a granny square. But when you seaming something together, like, 1 minute it could be going so well because it's like stitch to stitch and it's all lining up and it's all working out, and then the next time you think, okay, well, I've done this before, I'm gonna be good, but it's totally different fabric. So there is a whole new technique you might have to put into sewing it together. So yes, it is definitely one of those finishing touches that people might struggle with. But honestly, after watching that presentation, you've seen the comments. Some people are kind of saying, now I can give it a go because now I know what to do. So Sarah's presentation will be available for the next 24 hours if you need to go and rewatch it. If you kind of join us after, it's still going to be available in the VIP summit ticket. So you can rewatch it there forever and ever. Every time you need to do any sewing panels together, you can go and rewatch the presentation and have that hands-on tutorial just as at the click of a button.
Absolutely. So here we go. How do you decide on what seaming method to use? Very good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Many answers.
Is it bad to say that sometimes I just try one and see if it works, and if it doesn't, I'll try another one? Don't. There's no, again, like, it's not an exact science, is it? and a lot of it for me is trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a think about what you need the seam to do. Like for me, if it's at the shoulder and I know it's going to need to hold up a garment or something like that, I'll always put a bit more effort into that one. So I like the mattress stitch and then do a reinforcing whip stitch on the wrong side
Yes.
once I'm done.
Let's
Or
just talk about that.
if you want to seam, yeah.
Let's talk about
I
that.
think,
This whip stitch after you've done the mattress. Oh,
yeah, and I
I'm
mean,
like,
it's the last
light
thing you want
bulb.
to do, but it's going to hold up.
I was going to say, I think it's worth it though, isn't it? I think it's
Yeah.
really worth it. And I think as well, if we're talking about shoulder seat, if you've got particularly broad shoulders, then I think it's even more important, isn't it? If you're very slight and your seams are going to be a small proportion of the garment, then I think you're okay. But if it's a bigger proportion of the garment, so however big you are actually, if it's a huge part of the garment that you're seaming, then I think it's really important to reinforce it as much as you can without adding bulk. Like that's the balance you have to find.
That's the trade-off, isn't it? Yeah, that's the trade-off.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then Valerie's asking, what's the best way to block and seam cotton or bamboo? I did a lovely bamboo cardigan that all the weaved in ends are coming undone. Yeah. There's no easy answer to that, I'm afraid. There's no harder because bamboo is quite slippy, isn't it?
It's really, really slippery. Yeah. Longer ends. And just go to town on weaving them in. I know it's
over
really
and over
hard.
and over again. Yeah. That's the best.
And
best
what I would suggest is what I normally do with lacy shawls, for example. I sew my ends in before I block, but I don't cut them off. So I sew them in, leave the tail end on, don't cut it off, block your finished piece, because you're obviously going to be stretching and shaping the fabric. So those ends will kind of move about a little bit. But if you don't cut the very tail end off after you sew it in, block it, and then cut it off when it's kind of at its biggest, at its most stretched out state of the fabric. So then I cut them off. So that might help with it. But yeah, bamboo, like we were talking about the knots, weren't we? When you join in the yarn together, bamboo and cotton are notoriously bad for kind of joining the yarn and when you sew the ending, because they're so smooth. So it's just, again, do your best kind of weaving in ends. I think I did a video in my Facebook group, if you really wanted to go and find it. I kind of go up and then back under and again back under, and all different directions, because when the fabric is then worn and pulled in different directions, if your end goes kind of in different directions as well, there is less chances of them popping out. And one really great tip that I shared was actually using a sharp needle rather than a blunt needle. And don't just go under the strands of yarn. Like if you got a sharp needle, go right through the strands of yarn.
With the yarn, that
gives you that extra grip, that extra kind of security that they won't pull out. But yeah, sharp needle. Don't use blunt needles for cotton or bamboo to kind of sew it in.
Brilliant. And then Colleen's asking, my favorite stitch is the mattress stitch, but sometimes it doesn't want to tighten up. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I would probably maybe try pulling on it a little bit earlier, like just do 4 or 5 stitches back and forth and then pull, instead of doing, I don't know, inches and inches and then trying to pull it, because that is going to be really tricky. So I think that would probably be,
because it's hard to keep your tension. And also, do you think, be careful that you haven't split any stitches, because that makes it harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true. So use the blunt needle for that one. And then
you need to the needles, everyone. Yeah, if you split through the yarn on a stitch, then it just has a lot of the tension that you want for an end, but not the tension that you want for the mattress stitch. So maybe that's it. And then this comment's interesting. I was taught to only use whip stitch for seaming. Sat working on today's row of my temperature blanket. Awesome temperature blanket. But yeah, there's so many different ways, and they work differently for different reasons, don't they? It's really good to have different options to be able to use. And then people say, thank you, I finally understand. And then Julia saying, I'm an oddball because I really enjoy it.
Julia, come to my house.
Julia, you are hired.
Oh, absolutely, we'll rent you out. Oh, and I've had to do so. I've had to undo a seam after weaving in my ends. It was a nightmare and took me forever. But at least you know that you do it really, really well.
Yeah.
Oh,
We feel your pain.
we do feel your pain. And then Helen's asking, how do you block your garments? Well, it depends on your yarn. That chart, actually, if you rewatch that video that Sarah has just presented to us, the chart in there is really cool to show what kind of heat you should use for what kind of fiber, because it's very dependent, isn't it, as to what you're making, as to how you should do it, whether you should wet block
it could actually be a whole video class in itself, couldn't it, about blocking and the different.
Definitely. And there was on last year, actually, we did, didn't we? Hortense did a session about blocking. So yeah, I think you just need to research what fiber you're using, and then what type of moisture or heat you need to use on that. But in terms of like pinning it out and stuff, I just use foam blocks. And I use T-pins, or, you know, the comb pins that you can get. So like the equipment wise, you don't need an awful lot. And even if you haven't got those, you can use it. You can do it on a bed, can't you? You can do it on a mattress. Anything that you don't mind shoving pins into that's soft and squishy.
I was using a kid's play mat for years before I actually bought proper blocking mats.
Yeah, I was, but my kids have now claimed them, so I'm not allowed to do them anymore.
Just to add to the what kind of blocking method to use, if you can start with the washing instructions for that yarn, because most of the yarns now, they do have kind of care or wash instructions on them. So whether you can machine wash it or it's hand wash only. So that is a really great starting point in deciding whether the garment would withstand a complete kind of dunk in your sink and then kind of get the excess out, or if it's just a light spray blocking, and then obviously the heat as well, whether you can steam block it or whether it needs to be kind of cold blocking just with the spray of water. So that's a great starting point to decide then how the yarn's going to behave and what you can do to the yarn in terms of heat or moisture.
Definitely. And then Sharon and someone above as well has mentioned a similar thing, saying, I'm not a big seaming fan, but more because I like to try my garments as I go. So I assume you make lots of top-down garments. It's frustrating to make an entire sweater, seam it, and then find it doesn't fit. Absolutely. But then that lends some garments just don't work in the top-down fashion, do they? But also saying that, some top-down garments, you'll still have a seam here or a seam there, won't you? You'll still perhaps have a cuff seam if they've then worked in rows. You'll still have to work out the best way to pop those seams in. But yeah, the key to that then, if you're making things in flat and then seaming them, is absolutely get that gauge right. And it will fit, won't it? But I know that there are lots of people that are in this camp, isn't there, that, you know, I want to make it and try it on as I go. Definitely. And then, here we are. This is a good question from Catherine. Which seam stitch would you use to add a decorative touch?
Oh, that's a good question.
Really
maybe a slip stitch on the right side. Could you do that? Or actually, I think the laced mattress stitch would work really well too, but just don't pull it so tight. So just leave the lace kind of over and back.
Yeah.
So that you could see it and use a different color yarn. I think that would be quite nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love a seam, and then it adds more structure as well, doesn't it? And I've even done single crochet seams on the wrong side, like you said that in the presentation, didn't you? As a decorative element on the right side, sorry. And then, because that's quite fashionable actually at the moment, I've seen lots of seams on the outside again over the last couple of years.
Yeah, like you said, Sarah, if you make them different color, it's like a real design feature, isn't it, to make them stand out even more.
Definitely. So I'm reading as I'm thinking as well. There is a question summit related, and I'm hoping that if we answer this, it will answer it for other people as well. So it's confusing. I was thinking the videos were supposed to have Premiere links. I only see the actual video. Signed up for the VIP. Yes. So there is a difference there. If you are on the free version, in that will be the link for the Premiere for the video that will go live at that very time on the designer's YouTube channel. But if you've purchased the VIP version, then you already have all the videos and you can watch them within your course platform. They're yours. They won't have any ads attached to them or anything like that. So you can watch them on there, or you can join us on YouTube on the live ones. They're exact same content, but just you have purchased so that you're able to access them for your lifetime access, and that won't ever disappear for you. So I hope that makes sense. And then coming back, that carries on. Sorry, I can see it on the side here. How am I supposed to know when to come back for the live Q&A session? Basically, on the half hour, most of the presentations are between 20 and 30 minutes. So once the presentation goes live, about half an hour after that, we will then be live here in all of our community groups and on our Facebook channels. So did I explain that okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think so. And then Colleen's asking, do you find some yarns don't work very well with mattress stitch?
I think probably. I've used it for lots of different things. I mean, cotton maybe is, it's a bit stiff, isn't it, cotton? So it's a bit hard to pull it and get it to kind of come through.
But like on the
lightweight yarns, I think could be
on the flip side, I was going to say lightweight, like really fine, like friable yarns, like mohair and stuff. That's so hard to see.
Yeah, well, that's just difficult anyway. But yeah, that would be really difficult.
So careful, and I think that's why with things like that, I would do a crochet seam if I was needing to seam, as opposed to sewing a seam. But again, it's all trial and error, isn't it? Or it is for me anyway.
Yeah, same. I've had to rip out seams countless times, and you'd think I would know by this stage, but no, I still have to rip them out, or I don't line things up properly, or I think I'll take a shortcut and I'll just do it quickly, and then it doesn't work. Don't take shortcuts.
Oh my goodness, I'm going through just to see if there's lots of similar questions coming up about blocking and things that we've just covered. And then Nessa's saying, I always forget how to do a specific technique and end up looking it up each time. Yes, join the club.
But we all have those. I think mine is one of those popcorn, puff, or bobble stitch.
Yes, which is it? I don't know.
No idea. Every single time that gets me, and every single time I have to go and look it up.
So we've nearly run out of time. My goodness, it goes so fast. This is a question from Charmaine asking about a recommendation for blocking methods for cotton or cotton blends. So I quite go to town on cottons because it can take it, can't it? It can really take it. So I do apply heat to cottons. I steam cotton, and it comes out really, really nicely for me. But you can wet block. You can do anything basically with cotton, can't you? It will withstand it because you can wash it. So because it will wash and it will wash well, you can treat it in that same way when you're blocking it. You don't need to be all that delicate with it.
Yeah, wet blocking is fine if you have plenty of time to let it dry.
The cotton holds on to it. It takes so long to dry. So long to dry. And lots of people are saying loving the idea of reinforcing with a whip stitch. Yay! There we are. And then I can't see the end of this comment. Are there any good methods of seaming clothes using crochet rather than sewing? Absolutely. Yeah, we kind of touched on that, didn't we, about using slip stitch seams. I've used a yarn over slip stitch actually on the right side before, and that looks really nice. It's kind of knitted look as well. So that's really nice. Yeah,
I think one of the pictures I had in the video was the reverse single crochet.
Oh, that's a nice idea.
That was nice, wasn't it? Yeah, I liked that idea because you can make a real feature out of that. Yeah,
definitely. And this is an awesome idea. I practice the seam on swatches, and then I'll see how it works. That's a really brilliant idea because you can you'll have it blocked and ready, and then you can see how it works. I love that idea. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my goodness, we have run out of time. The next presentation is premiering in like 60 seconds. So we are going to have to end there, everybody. Yeah. If we haven't managed to answer your question, come back to the next live and ask us again, and we'll go again. But yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us with your amazing expertise. And if everybody, once you're ready, pop over to the next link that you will find in your login, and we will be there in just a minute to watch the presentation from Michelle, isn't it, from Two Brothers Blankets, about crochet garments for men and for boys. So come and join us there, and then we'll be live just shortly after.
Yes.
Cool. See you soon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.